welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program tonight, dozens of US states have accused Facebook and Instagram owner Meta of profiting from children's pain, damaging their mental health and misleading people about the safety of the platforms. The suit filed in the federal court in Oakland, California adds to growing scrutiny of social media giants over how they serve their youngest users. India has the largest number of Instagram users in the world at more than 330 million users. What are the implications of this on kids in the country? Should we be concerned? The allegations appear strong. The suit accuses Meta of deceptive and unlawful conduct, harming vulnerable youth for financial gain. We'll be talking to psychologists, we'll be talking to children who may have been impacted and others as we look at the potential impact of this and whether there needs to be legislation to control Instagram. We decided to take the air pollution debate outside Delhi, that is our second debate this evening, to focus on Mumbai, where air quality has been plummeting. What are experts saying? We'll also be sharing with you exclusive data on the farm fire situation in Punjab with a look at satellite imagery of today's situation, imagery just a few hours old. As far as the farm fire situation in Punjab is concerned, there's also fascinating data that indicates the trends for the month of October over the last few years. And finally, 2 Indian-American scientists have been honored with the national medals in the fields of science and technology by the US. President Joe Biden has honored Dr. Ashok Gadgil, one of the scientists and inventor with a formidable reputation of having changed the lives of millions in developing nations. Dr. Gadgil joins us as we go through some of his biggest inventions through the years. But first, let me just go across to our big story, and what we are looking at is Instagram and the situation as far as the health of young people in the country are concerned. Dr. Amit Sen, one of India's best-known child and adolescent psychiatrists, are with us on the program. N.S. Napinai, advocate of the Supreme Court and founder of the Cyber Saathi Foundation, joins us as well. Dr. Sen, let me come to you first. Over, let us say, the last 3 years, has there been an increase in the number of cases that you are aware of who need counseling on the basis of addiction to social media, in some cases Instagram?
So there's been a marked increase, exponential rise in range of mental health problems ranging from anxiety, depression, substance misuse, and suicidal behaviors. And most of these young people who come to us almost invariably have a problem with screens, screen addiction, social media. It's been a growing concern for the longest time, but after COVID, it's taken another shape, which seems to have gone completely out of hand. And we know that in India, the incidence of self-harm has risen remarkably. And we also know that between the age of 15 to 25, we have the highest rates of suicide in India. So all these things most definitely point towards this growing menace, if you can call it. It's something that we have taken our time to understand the impact of on our young people. And if we do not do something fairly radically right now, I think we are headed towards an epidemic of screen addiction, social media impact on mental health.
What is the link, Dr. Sen, between self-harm and social media addiction? Is it people watching violent videos which results in self-harm? Is there a direct link that you are aware of?
Yes, so in the social media platforms, you also have algorithms which will lead young people to spaces where they talk about body image, what is it to be good looking and perfect. It's about food habits and nutrition. It's about indeed self-harm and suicide as well. And many of these kids who are already vulnerable, who are seeking validation, who are seeking some kind of belongingness in a group, a sense of self-worth, they fall prey to it the most. And when they do not get the validation, for instance, there are young people whose lives depend on the number of likes they get on Instagram on a daily basis. And on days that they do not get enough, their moods plummets, and when some of these things come together and other avenues close. So when you're so hooked to the screen, for instance, other things take a beating. So you do not go into the real social spaces. You do not make authentic friends. or have the ability to even make friends and maintain them. You are missing out on perhaps academics and other hobbies that you are doing. And all that begins to tell on the self-esteem and mental well-being of children. And sometimes when all these things come together, it crosses the tipping point. And that's the time the risks shoot up, and we often have some very tragic consequences. So the number of kids who end up killing themselves runs in tens of thousands in our country on an annual basis. That's the reality indeed, and it's shocking and extremely disturbing.
Aarti Rajaratnam, a child psychologist, joins us. Arohi Singh is a student of modern media at UPS Dehradun. Thanks, Arohi, very much for being with us. Aarti Rajaratnam, how is this not, a phenomena which is limited to our big cities? It's a problem across the country in terms of Instagram and addiction, or at least social media and addiction.
See, it's like you rightly mentioned, it is an issue across the country. And what we notice is that in the smaller towns, especially, the villages, what is happening is this is leading to a lot of relational challenges, children eloping, those kind of things. So when we say it's not just mental health, but also sociological problems that we are dealing with in a large scale. And the kind of violence that children are being exposed to, the kind of pornography that they're being exposed to. Now, sometimes you get onto one of these sites, you get barred for talking about a politician. But then when porn comes out, when violent behavior is glorified, when you're putting out information that is potentially harmful for young children, it doesn't seem to be violating any of their community standards. And no matter how you look at this, many of these sites are cashing in on surveillance capitalism. We need to understand that it's not something very simple. And when we say surveillance capitalism, information is everything right now, and it's being sold. And they realize that this huge demographic that's been ignored so far, which is the teenagers and young children, are now potentially the best tool for them to earn again. So I think somewhere we need to start addressing this. See, when it's alcohol, when it's tobacco, when it's other addictive substances, we tend to, set these boundaries and these lines saying this is the age when someone can engage with it. But with social media, nobody is stepping up, because we have now used social media and even every form of screen to keep children engaged. We've been using it to, if I'm busy right now and I don't want my child to be, doing something else, we're just giving them screens. So there is no kind of monitoring mechanism. And like Dr. Sen rightly mentioned, the number of children seeking help has gone up exponentially, especially after the pandemic. In fact, things like porn addiction, which were not even heard of before, are much, much higher. And we realize that they are starting out as pop-up small ads on Insta and on Facebook. And then, the algorithms just pick up behaviors and then they repeatedly fed. So I think, yes, it is quite dangerous in that sense.
Enes Napinai, from a technology standpoint, the fact that algorithms pick up certain behavior, this has been one of the big concerns which have been raised in the United States, and it leads children to a potentially toxic space. What is fundamentally wrong in the design of some of these apps which actually causes harm to young people?
I don't claim to be a technology expert, but from a legal and techno combination, if I were to address it, I'll put it very simply. AI may be artificial intelligence, but it has its limitations. So the algorithm does not know whether it's addressing a 13-year-old or a 30-year-old or a 90-year-old. It sees patterns, it caters to that. That's it. And how it caters also varies in terms of, for instance, I'm just mentioning this because I came across this shocking incident when one of my school friends once told me that they were just used to watching a particular genre of movies, which is a South Indian language based movie, regular mainstream movies. But once when they went on to a content hosting platform, a very popular one, it suggested pornographic content. There is no reason for AI to choose pornography based on the kind of genre they were watching. But probably certain kinds of content in one of those movies may have triggered it. And it was her 8-year-old son who was watching the content hosting platform at that point of time. So today, when we are talking about artificial intelligence and transparency reports with respect to AI, the limited role that law can play is in terms of setting out certain responsibility and liability when it comes to social media platforms. I feel that when we talked about intermediary liability and safe harbors for them, we got a little carried away at some point of time and forgot that even USA's sweetheart deal, as they call it, the safe harbor, was limited to content hosted by third parties on a platform. So if you have an algorithm which you have developed, which is suggesting content to me, it has nothing to do with third party content. So this is where law can play a role in terms of ensuring that there is responsible technology and ensuring that there is a liability when platforms fail to ensure responsible technology.
Arohi, as a young student yourself, could you share your own experiences in perhaps using social media? Has it been difficult or challenging for you? What about your friends?
For me, I was 13 when I joined Instagram. And then after that, for me, Instagram is a big distraction, I would say. And that will keep me distracted. And so that's me. Like my friends and all, we stay connected on Instagram. And through that, it has given me an exposure that I would say that, so that is me. Like my biggest positive thing about Instagram is me having like connections with the people abroad or my friends who live in different state. And I would. And for my negative approach on Instagram, I would say that Instagram has a very, very bad influence. My friends tend to, compare themselves with, different influencers and which have a bad influence of them. And because of that, they have so much of pressure on them. And because of that, they kind of have that stress that builds. So, yeah.
And Arohi, do you believe that you need to cut down on the time that you spend on Instagram? Do your friends sometimes spend far too much time on Instagram? Is that what the heart of the problem is?
Yes, they spend 3 to 4 hours and maybe maximum more than 7 hours. And that is a very bad thing because, it is a very, very bad thing.
It is. Dr. Sen, it's not unusual to have people spend 3, 4, perhaps even 7, 8 hours a day on an app like Instagram or other social media. How dangerous is that to the emotional, the mental well-being of anybody, whether it's a child or an adult?
So there's been wide-scale scientific studies ranging from Japan to Korea to the North Americas, and there is no doubt that it has an impact on the structure and the functioning of the brain even. So they have found that there's cortical thinning even in the frontal lobes, which is the seat of intelligence and higher order thinking. There is also a disruption of the connection between the frontal lobe and the living system. So the thinking part of the brain and the feeling part of the brain, which is again the balance that young people are seeking, often gets disrupted badly. And the consequences of that can be seen in the rising mental health difficulties. It's a bit also, what Arohi said is also very poignant because, at one end she was saying that she really enjoys the social connect she has. And indeed, social media or all the different kinds of gadgets probably give so much to young people to feel good about. And at the same time, she identifies that it goes way out of hand, as it has done with some of her friends and indeed in her own life. And that is the key thing, because what the gadgets do, the screens do, is stimulate the same circuits that substances and drugs of abuse do. And indeed, the patterns of addiction are very similar to any other highly addictive substance like opium or cocaine. And that's the kind of high that you get from these screens. So, and of course, one can say that every person who starts using, let's say, cannabis or alcohol will not necessarily become an addict. But the fact is that they will use it only once they're 18 or 21 or whatever the cutoff age is, isn't it, of legal use of these substances. Whereas we are giving these gadgets to kids who are much, much younger, even in preteen years. And there is clear evidence that even in substance misuse, the younger you start, the more chances you have of becoming an addict. And that's a pattern that you are seeing, that, repeatedly we have kids who get so entrenched into this pattern of behavior that at the expense of many other developmental experiences, rites of passage that they otherwise would have had. Otherwise, they would have chosen. And what is happening is that because screens have taken such a prominent part in our lives, the other spaces are continuously dwindling. We don't have the foresight or the planning to be able to provide kids with other spaces which are equally interesting or stimulating, which they will opt for if we had provided them with it, and that's another big problem we have, both from our educational point of view or the way parents handle screens, or even indeed the way they model screen sucking behavior themselves. I mean, many of adults, the moment they come back from work, they will open their WhatsApp, or they will sit in front of the screen. So what kind of role models are we to our children as well?
And guilty as accused, Dr. said, I do the same thing because I'm hooked to the news, but that's part of the job. But certainly something that one needs to get out of. But Aarti, every case, Aarti, is different. How difficult is it, generally speaking, to treat addictions among children with who are hooked to social media?
One thing about screens, Vishnu, is that they have spent millions of dollars to make a screen or these apps mimic the natural thought process of the brain. For example, when I have the default mode of the brain, I'm going to be sitting down, I think one thought, and then I move on to something else. Social media has been designed to mimic the mind. And in very young children who are not yet able to discern this, they're not able to differentiate between their own thoughts and what's coming out as a stimulus from the outside. This is one of the primary reasons why the screens have become extremely addictive. Sure. Azar Askin, who invented the infinite scrolling, again, he apologizes now saying, I didn't know that it was destroying so many lives. Earlier, when you ended a page, you had to sort of refresh and come back. But now with the infinite scrolling, that has become the second reason why children are addicted so much. And the third is, of course, the attractive colors and the kind of high that it's giving. One of the researches that we've been doing is language development and social skill development in young children. See, when I'm looking at a small screen, like a tab or a phone, my eyeballs fix in one place. It's called the ocular lock. That is a typical evolutionary biology-wise, it is the response that a victim has when there's a predator on top. So it cuts off all the other circuits and it's focusing only on the one that's the animal that is attacking it. This is one of the reasons why the auditory circuits get cut off in a lot of children, and it is affecting language development. We see up to 7-year gaps in children who've been using screens for a very long time. And this is one thing that we need to seriously look at and even guide schools to stop using screens while they're teaching. Learning happens in relationships. And if it can happen without a screen, it would work very well, because screen inferiority, this has been proved time and again, that people who read on a screen retain less information as opposed to people who read from a book. So when I look at all of this, it is difficult to treat because there are so many aspects to what screen addiction is doing to children. It's not just one substance where you can give, medication over a period of time, counsel them and come out. This has become almost like, a second skin for many children, and they're not able to discern between what is an addiction.
A huge problem. And thank you so much from a medical standpoint, expressing or explaining to us what the concerns are. Will there be some sort of legislation? Will there be a larger thought process on where we're all headed, in society, in our country, with our children and social media? Thank you all very much for being with us. We're going to move on because we decided to take the air pollution debate outside Delhi to focus on Mumbai, where air quality has been plummeting. What are the experts saying? We'll be joined by a few in just a few moments, but we've got Hiren Jetwa, a very special guest. He's one of the finest NASA scientists looking at, among other things, forest fires and agricultural fires, I should say, in parts of India. We'll also be sharing with you fairly exclusive data on the farm fire situation in Punjab with a look at satellite imagery of today's latest situation and also look at this day a couple of years back. So before we actually go across to Hiren Jetwa, who's a senior research scientist in the Morgan State University and at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, let me just bring across a couple of those images. And what we can actually show you are images over the last couple of years. Let's just have those images, those pictures out with us. So this is 2019 and we're focusing on Punjab, and the dots that you see on your screen are of farm fires. Now it changes every year. Let's go to 2020 and then keep scrolling from one image to the other. Now these are just visual representations. If you look at these themselves, they do not say much other than the fact that this has been a problem virtually every year. 2021 was much lower. And let's take a look at 2022 and then bring you an image of just a couple of hours back of the 25th of October, 2023. And this is the image that you have on your screen. All those areas which have been marked in red over there are areas where there have been significant farm fires in the last little while. But I think to actually understand some of the data, we need to look at the trends of the month of October between the 1st of October and the 25th of October. So let's just have that data out. And that data is actually quite interesting because, as you can see, between 2012 and now, with the exception of 2016, when farm fires really raged over Punjab, there's been a broad downward trend. There have been some outliers, for example, 2020. But if you look at 2023, that number indicates that stubble burning in Punjab has been at its lowest since 2012. Herein, is there any explanation of that data? Are things getting better? Is what I think people in India would want to know.
Yeah, hi Vishnu, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so I was surprised to see that the fires so far in the Punjab and Haryana region has been the lowest since 2012, 2016. We never saw such low level of fires in last many years. And that point me to think that there could be two possible reasons. The first reason is it could be that the burning season, the harvesting and followed by the burning season has been delayed for some reason. And I was reading some reports just today morning, and it seems that the rainfall was excess in Punjab and Haryana this July, August. And that destroyed some portion of the rice and other crops. And also there were some rain spells in October, and that delayed the harvesting season in some parts of both states. So I'm a bit afraid that the season has been delayed and we haven't seen yet the peak fires in coming 2 weeks, October last week and November first week. That's where normally the burning activities peak. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but I'm a bit afraid that this year the harvesting and the dynamics of burning is quite different from the other years. I think it's mostly forced by the excessive rain in both states, both in July, August, where we have the peak monsoon season. Some parts are some portion of the crops has been destroyed, and later they replanted the rice and other crops in July and August, which is too late actually. Mm-hmm. So which we are not seeing yet, and that's why I think we are seeing the lowest number of fires so far, because I think farmers are still waiting to harvest the lately grown crops.
So we could actually see significant forest fires in the days ahead. In terms of air pollution levels, Hiren, is there any direct correlation that you're seeing? Because the levels, for example, in Delhi are still fairly high. They were yesterday, and yet the forest fire numbers are low. So what explains that?
Well, it was low, but it was. I looked at the PM 2.5 data from the U.S. Embassy site in Delhi, and it was an episodic transport of the smoke from the nearby fires in Haryana. So fires are still not zero; it's still at lower level, but it's just one puff of the smoke transport, the pollution transport over the Delhi region, and then it went back to, I would say, not normal level, but to a lower level. But there are also some fires in UP, in the northern part of the UP, and also in the eastern part of Delhi, which might be also contributing to the pollution level up to some level in New Delhi.
And Hiren, I think an important point is that every year, because agricultural practices are same on both sides of the border, forest fires in India affect Pakistan and vice versa. So the entire Indo-Gangetic plain is in fact impacted as a result of forest fires, not just in India but Pakistan as well. East Pakistan.
That's true. You have shown that map, right, of satellite data that we got.
In fact, let's have that last frame out of today's data. But go ahead here and continue with your point.
So that's why, you could see that those fire hotspots are on the both sides of the border, and depending on the wind direction that on a particular day, that will determine that in which direction the smoke outflow will take place.
Yeah.
But normally speaking, seasonally, the winds are northwesterly. So winds are flowing from northwest to the southeast. So whatever we burn in Punjab and Haryana, Delhi is the next stop. It's in the vicinity of this burning region, and the whole what we call the river of smoke. It flows from the Punjab, Haryana all the way to Bay of Bengal.
No, it does, and that's a huge concern here. And thanks very much for explaining some of that data and the early trends. And I think that the takeaway for me from this discussion is that these are early trends, and that it's something that
these are very early trends. And the season, the burning season, I think
has been delayed and may not have started. So we need to be careful. Let us hope it stays low, but chances are it will not. But Hiren, thanks very much for being with us. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Vishnu. Thank you.
While the focus every year is on pollution in the national capital region, the situation in Mumbai is getting to be alarming. Consider this. Now, the 4-year high pollution levels that we've seen in October this year are very, very significant. It points to an increase in pollution levels at multiple levels. What exactly is the cause of this? We'll be looking at that. The air quality index in Mumbai over 200 at several places. Between January 1st to February 17th, early this year, 12 days of air quality index in Mumbai was higher than that of Delhi, which has traditionally been the most polluted. In the winter of 2022 last year, poor or very poor quality was recorded on 66 of 92 days. The reason we are focusing on Mumbai is it is absolutely critical to understand that the entire issue of air pollution and air quality it goes well beyond the national capital region, and it certainly impacts Mumbai as well. What is the toxicity that we are talking about? Where does it come from? Construction, dust, unclean fuel burning in restaurants, eateries, for example, the open burning of solid waste, and industrial pollution are some of these factors. Now, the Mumbai municipality has actually stepped in, and we see a lot of solutions now in Mumbai, which we've seen in Delhi as well, but the point is, are these really solutions? The installation of sprinkler systems in 15 days, the installation of anti-smog machines in 30 days, 35-foot iron enclosures on construction sites is mandatory. The installation of air quality measuring devices are important as well. So that's what Mumbai has done. What has Delhi done thus far this year? Remember, air pollution is plummeting in Delhi as well. Apart from 13 hotspots, 8 new areas have been identified with an air quality index of more than 300. Special teams have been deployed to find the causes of this. District commissioners are on a check pollution activity, a check pollution drive in the city. Dust suppressants are being added to water being sprayed. An anti-dust campaign is being intensified, and there are instructions to remove traffic congestion at 91 points. The frequency of the non-polluting metro is being increased, and the Delhi Transport Corporation, which runs buses, has been asked to increase bus frequency and hire private buses as a means of getting the number of private vehicles off the roads. Remember, DTC's fleet runs on CNG, so it doesn't generate pollution per se. Action against the violation of diesel generator rules is what Delhi has pushed for as well. So that gives you an idea of what Delhi is doing, what Mumbai is doing. We're joined now by Dr. Jalil Parker, the senior pulmonary physician at Leelavati Hospital in Mumbai, Ronak Sutaria, founder of Respira Living Sciences Private Limited, Abhishek Kar, the senior program lead at the Council on Energy, Environment and Water, and Palash Mukherjee, the lead air quality and health at NRDC. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us. Dr. Parker, just from a health standpoint, are you seeing a significant rise in cases of patients that come to, for example, consult you or to your hospital in the last couple of days in Mumbai?
Yes, I think the rise in respiratory cases have been since the last maybe a month or more than a month or so.
And I know you may not have absolute numbers, but would you give us an approximate percentage rise that you are seeing in the last couple of, let's say in the last month or so, compared to what it was earlier?
Me being a respiratory physician, all the patients who come usually come with cough, cold, fever, body ache, etc. and with, of course, bronchospasm. So I would say that the number of patients that come to us, besides the other illnesses, is nearly 60-70%, and not less.
There's a 60-70% increase in patients, in these particular ailments that you're talking about. All
yes,
right.
Absolutely.
All right. And Dr. Parker, just since you've been a physician for so many decades, in Mumbai, would you be able to share your personal experience on how this is going up, or have we traditionally seen these numbers, but it's just not been reported?
To be very honest with you, I think Mumbai was much more cleaner from the pollution point of view because we are on the seaside. But over the years, I think the pollution is increasing, and there are a lot of factors which are contributing to it. First of all, there is remarkable construction that is going on, number one. Number two, the weather is changing dramatically time and again within a couple of days. Number three is the cleanliness that we are supposed to maintain in a city like Mumbai. Frankly speaking, it's not so, because you have the municipal authorities and employees who come and clean the road, and they collect all the dust, etc. at one corner, and then they put it in some garbage can or so. But then it's the wind that blows all over across. And then if you see near the Jhoppadpattis, most of this garbage is burned, which has plastics, it has bottles, it has bags, it has food, everything. I think these are all toxic materials which are affecting. And lastly, but not the least, it's most important is that many of, because of religious beliefs or whatever, many of us are feeding not only the pigeons but the crows also. So the pigeon menace is a huge menace, and especially it is all over wherever the pigeons are fed. And those respiratory diseases are quite bad. In fact, they bring in fibrosis of the lung over a period of time.
No, that's so important, and it's something we just don't talk about. We talk about fumes coming out of industrial stacks or from car emissions, but what you're talking about is a serious biological hazard. And it is a fact, not just in Mumbai, but across, and it is very much, pollution driven from the air. I want to go across to Abhishek Kar as well. Abhishek, why has the sea breeze, as it were, which is most of us felt been key in removing air pollution from Mumbai, why is it no longer as effective? Is it because of increased construction activity? Are there weather conditions which are changing? What is your thought on this?
Right, and I think there is rarely a chance to give a simple answer to this question, because in natural phenomena, when there is a change in it, there are multiple factors, both anthropogenic human factors as well as climatic larger factors which come into play. But the fact is that the air quality in a city will depend on both things. One, the meteorological conditions, which are not in favor of Mumbai at this point, and human activities. Now, thing that is under your control are the human activities. You really can't do much about the meteorological factors, because even if you think about the climate change linkages, it is really a long-term thing. You really cannot do anything right now, and that is going to solve the problem. So Given that, I think the focus should be in terms of better enforcement of the guidelines. I think the challenge has been that in terms of policy, there is significantly in the recent days lot of new policies come into being. But the challenge is how well are they being enforced? So I think we have to come back to the very basics of governance again. If something is said, okay, you should do A, B, and C, are they actually being done on the ground? Does the BMC have sufficient resources, both in terms of personal vehicles, to see that whether construction sites are following what has been laid down? Are the construction companies themselves initiating instructions to their own staff and members and trying to find out are the rules that a government has asked them to follow, are they being followed? I think the challenge is that we only wake up to this challenge of air pollution when things are at severe
when we can't breathe, right?
worse.
No, I get your point. Palash Mukherjee, come in over here in Mumbai, in Delhi and parts of North India. This time of the year, we see stubble burning, and that has a direct impact. It's been statistically proven on certain weeks of the year. In Mumbai, do we have any statistical evidence of what exactly is causing the air pollution this time? Because otherwise it's vague, industrial sites, construction activity, more car emissions. I mean, that could be true of any part of the world.
I think it's very critical to know that we know what the sources of pollution are across our cities. They are more or less common. They could vary in what each individual source may be contributing. But I think what the experts before me have said, and what I also continue to say, is that these sources need to be worked on through the year. Like you said, in vehicles, construction, industry, these are all contributing to varying degrees. In Mumbai, it may be a higher element of construction. Also, there might be element of the inversion effect and the pollution being trapped because of the higher urban density. But the solutions are to build long-term effective frameworks for this. And this means deployment of technology, but also personnel across the year. Like, for instance, what has happened in the last 10 days or so with the construction rules being implemented suddenly. These rules have existed for a while, but they're being implemented now. Now, what remains to be seen is if these are being implemented through the year in the coming year. What I'm saying is that there's not much that can be done at this stage to bring an immediate relief. I'd also highlight very critically what you pointed out to the doctor panelist in the beginning of the session, is that we don't have the statistics on this, on what the health impacts are. And that also is a very critical long-term intervention. Monitoring and evaluation of what the health impacts are of this, because they are not uniform. They affect outdoor workers more. They affect certain individuals in certain zones more. They affect women and children more. So it's important to highlight those so that the urgency of action is brought to the fore.
I think that's an important point. Before I go across to Ronak Sutaria, I think it is important to just remind our viewers, and I did this earlier on as well, on why exactly we are discussing this. We are discussing this because there's a very clear link between air pollution and fatalities. If we had this discussion 10 years ago, we didn't have this data. There is overwhelming data now. The bad air that we breathe is what is killing us now. So let's just have graphic 7 with us right now. I want to go through a couple of the key surveys which actually identify this. First up, let's take a look at what Lancet has said. A Lancet study has said that 1.6 million premature deaths occurred due to air pollution in 2019, with India topping in deaths because of air pollution. Globally, China was second. In 2019, pollution deaths accounted for nearly 18% of all deaths in India. Now, this is Lancet. It is extremely credible. And that number of 18% is whopping. If you were to put that into an actual number, it's lakhs of people killed every year as a result of air pollution. Greenpeace says over 120,000 people died in air pollution because of air pollution in India in 2020. Significantly, it caused economic damages of 2 lakh crores in India. Imagine if 2 lakh crores was actually added to our annual GDP, or it was added as a statistic which influences our economic growth. We are actually losing this if you look at the loss of life and productivity as a result being impacted as a result of poor air. Greenpeace and IQ Air in 2021 have said 54,000 premature deaths in Delhi in 2020 because of air pollution. But there are extremely other very, very credible sources. The University of Chicago says that in a study that our lives in Delhi are going down by almost 10 years on the basis of the air that we are breathing. If the air was cleaner, we would live longer. A Harvard study of 2021 says 1/3 of deaths in India every year are linked to air pollution. The WHO report says air pollution is causing 7 million premature deaths a year globally. Ronak Sutaria, some of the measures now announced in Mumbai, sprinklers, greater monitoring of construction sites. We've seen this in Delhi, and a lot of people, dust suppressants, a lot of people would say that this doesn't really do anything. That, it shows that the government or the municipality is trying, but you don't control pollution with a water sprinkler in the air, which is what this is.
Yeah, Vishnu, absolutely. I think we've been looking at a couple of different things. The NCAP, which was rolled out for Mumbai, the bulk of that program implementation was used for the EV bus systems, and these knee-jerk reactions which are happening currently in the winter months in October is not, coinciding or is in sync with what the NCAP related spending had happened. So the entire focus of the state government in using and the municipal corporation in using the clean air budget had gone into the electrification of the public transit system. Having said that, we've also been very closely looking at the winter data for Mumbai, and there are two things which, particularly have stood out. One is a slightly good news. We haven't had any news which have had even a tinge of being positive, but we found that the NO2 pollutants, NO2 and benzene pollutants actually have gone down in Mumbai over the last 4 weeks, as compared to the same 4 weeks in the prior year. And NO2 and benzene are direct emissions from vehicular pollutions. So there is something which is saying that probably vehicular pollution may be on the bend and it might be reducing. Having said that, the particulate matter pollution has doubled. It has increased by 100% in the same 4 weeks when we looked at October 22 compared to October 23. Particulate matter is the more harmful pollutant. The sources of particulate are slightly different from the NO2 and the VOC pollutants. But having said that, something seems to be working, but a few things are significantly not working. So the bottom line in this is that Mumbai, the numbers that you read out from Lancet, that you read out from Chicago studies, the exposure rates in Mumbai are far, far higher. So Lancet numbers which came out in 2019 and 2021, if they were to be evaluated for Mumbai in 2023, the situation would be even more dire. But having said that, I think what we need to evaluate more closely is that some things, from the vehicular pollution side, from some kind of combustions are working, but the dust related and the particulate matter pollution situation has doubled for Mumbai, which is a huge cause of concern. Yeah, so we need to bring the science into understanding, what's going right, what's going wrong, and we need to encourage what's going right. So I think there are these dimensions to it.
I take all of those points. Dr. Parker, one final question to you. Are you in a position now, on the basis of new science, new medical learnings, able to attribute a death to air pollution? Because typically, a person dies because of a heart attack or of the failure of certain organs, etc., any number of causes. But, no one says that it was caused by air pollution. The cause of death is always something different. But there is all this data now in front of us. Therefore, as a doctor, are you able to sufficiently have enough evidence to say that X patient has passed away because of air pollution?
Of course, with the advance in our medical equipment, CT scans, etc., pulmonary function tests, etc., your ventilators, we are able to assess and we are able to say that yes, it is because of, say, interstitial pulmonary fibrosis, because of pollution, or because of the other reasons that are there. Now, what we were talking about was one of the causes which I missed in my previous talk that I gave in a couple of minutes back was wherever this construction is going on in every neighborhood, there is a sort of a factory where they produce, they crush stones and they produce a sort of gravel that is used into construction. Now, nobody is having a look at that. And what are we talking about? I mean, I don't want to get into the statistical jargon. If you see all these instruments that they are talking about, which are going to be used in South Mumbai, what is it going to do? Is it going to cover a kilometer or 2 kilometers? I don't think even that. So what are we talking about? We have to get down to see to it that the pollutants are decreased all over in the city of Mumbai. You have dumping grounds. Previously it was Devnar. Now you have Mawal. You are burning things over there which are all toxic. So let's not get into the political jargon or get into the statistical jargon. Let us treat the patient and let us see to it that we give a healthy living to each and every human being rather than talking about these issues, getting this machine, that machine. The cleanliness has to be there. The basic cleanliness, if it is not there, how are you going to improvise? If there is no control over construction or the sites of construction where the norms restricting to pollution are very stringent, only then you can bring an improvement in the quality of life of a human being.
And that's what it's all about. Look, gentlemen, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us. It's important that we focus as much on Mumbai and other parts of the country, not just the national capital, which has become synonymous with air pollution. It's not just the national capital. That's what we'll be focusing on throughout the next couple of months on NDTV. New machines, the easy availability of data now, which wasn't the case even 3-4 years back, indicates that several areas beyond the national capital are horrifically polluted because of air pollution, and that's something that has a direct impact at so many levels. We'll take a short break, more coming up. Well, now on to a very special left, right and center interview. 2 Indian-American scientists have been honored with the national medals in the fields of science and technology by the US President Joe Biden. Dr. Ashok Gadgil was conferred the National Medal for Technology and Innovation, while Dr. Shubhra Suresh was awarded the National Medal of Science. In a statement, the White House has said that their accomplishments advance American leadership in science, technology and innovation, and that their work inspired the next generation of American minds. Dr. Ashok Gadgil, who joins us now, is a civil and environmental engineer. He is an inventor of repute. When in doubt, he invents, let's put it that way. He invented a highly efficient UV water purifier, for example, in 1993. And also what came to be known as the Berkeley Dartford stove. We'll be talking about that. But the stove, fascinating, a simple fuel-efficient wood-burning device that massively eased the financial burden faced by women in conflict-hit Darfur in Africa. We're now joined by Dr. Gadgil. Thanks, sir, very much for being with us. He's such an incredible inspiration, sir, for people around the world. And that spirit of invention and innovation and tinkering and doing something which actually helps countless people has defined you as a person, not just your teaching, but in terms of what you've done. I thought an interesting way of talking about what your work has actually been is actually to go through a couple of your extraordinary accomplishments. So let's start at the top. Energy efficient lighting, saving billions of dollars in developing nations. How has this been one of your key focal areas?
For a long time, it was possible to save billions of dollars both for the consumers and for the electric supply utility in the developing countries. But it was not happening because the consumers were too poor to buy efficient electric lighting. And they were receiving, most of them, 80% of them, as depending on the poverty in the country, were receiving what we in the US call lifeline rates or subsidized electricity prices. So subsidized electricity was not worth saving with full-priced efficient devices. And that hurt everybody because more electricity was used, that means less homes were electrified. And the utility kept on losing money on the subsidies to the electricity.
Right. So
the solution
yes.
Go on.
Go ahead, sir. The solution?
The solution I came up with is a collaboration where the utility itself, the electric supply company itself, participates in the market and subsidizes the electric efficient lighting devices, efficient lamps, LED lamps, rather than simply subsidizing electricity, which will always undercut unsubsidized efficiency. And
Dr. Gargil, next point. Let's run through the technologies. The second one, a low-cost UV filtration-based water disinfection system. Why did you do this, and how? And what were some of the key technologies which you had to figure out so that it's replicated and replicated at a cost? Because if it's too expensive, it doesn't work in developing societies.
So, of course, trying to disinfect drinking water at a price that local people can afford was key, which meant that price was a very important constraint. The big innovation was to look for something that will disinfect the water really, really cheaply, but will also have no moving parts, will have nothing to foul, will be easy to maintain in the field, in the developing world, in the rural context. And what I came up with a way to disinfect with UVC light, which actually destroys the DNA of the pathogens, but keep the light away from the water without having to use glass sleeves by suspending it in air. So there is only an air gap between the lamp and the water. And that works. Right. And make it profitable for somebody to actually sell the water. So everybody makes some money or somebody saves lives.
Dr. Gargil, the Darfur stove, I read a lot about it. I didn't know, frankly, about some of the other inventions, but the Darfur stove I certainly did know about. It's a low-cost natural convection stove. It's remarkably efficient. It costs what? Just a few $100s. And when it was transported to less than that, how much did it cost? $20.
It cost $20 fully assembled and transported from Mumbai to Africa.
$20, and it actually ensured that women in Darfur saved upwards of what, $1,500 annually. How does it work?
Well, it just burns wood, but we had to improve the combustion efficiency of the wood. And we had to improve the heat transfer efficiency of the fire into the pot. And both of these together is what allowed much less fuel use. But the key was to make sure it worked with their pots, their fuel, their cooking methods, and still was inexpensive and easy to assemble. We got it made in flat kits in Mumbai and shipped it to Africa all the way and assembled it with Darfur refugees' own labor, who were paid for it, and it still cost about $20.
Remarkable. A low-cost natural convection stove system to remove carcinogens from groundwater. What was the science behind this? Another key invention of yours.
It's not combustion system. It's a low-cost device to remove a technology to remove arsenic from drinking water. It's something I invented specifically for the problems of India and Bangladesh, who have groundwater contaminated with extremely high levels of arsenic.
Yes.
And the technology is based on releasing a kind of iron rust in the water with small amount of electric current, a DC voltage about size of two couple of D-cell batteries. And that dissolved rust captures the arsenic and settles out, and leaving the water safe to drink.
Fantastic. And
we have 2 plants licensed by the university operating in India now, in West Bengal, and one in Uttar Pradesh.
Dr. Gargil, you've also worked on a $100 plant wax-based non-electric infant warmer, and we should have a picture of this coming up. It in a sense replicates an incubator, right? Or what exactly is the function?
The function is to avoid infant deaths from hypothermia. About 1 million infants die in the first days of their birth from hypothermia. And the place where they die doesn't have reliable electricity. And the infants, even though what you're showing is exactly the approach recommended by the UNICEF people, and it is not adequate.
Right.
So we have a plant wax-based infant warmer that has reduced all-cause deaths of neonatals by a factor of 3 for a large trial in Rwanda, public hospitals. And that's a very dramatic impact. I'm working closely with doctors at Harvard Medical School and with Rwandan public health doctors to make this happen.
For so many of us interested in science and in terms of actually saving lives and making a difference in the quality of lives of people, thank you very much, sir, for speaking to NDTV.
My pleasure.